So let's jump in. So for the 23-24, the first thing that we have is the first errata. Use of funds. Use of funds for schools can use funds to provide the same services to other children and youth who are determined by the school district to be at risk of failing or dropping out of school. We have the policy there, and Anna's going to help us out and drop in a lot of these links so you guys have access to them. The important thing to keep in mind that this needs to be on school grounds. So you can do, for an example, a tutoring session and have students that are experiencing homelessness as well as other students being supported by the same teacher and being funded through your TEHCY competitive subgrant. Collaboration and coordination with other federal and state programs. You can pay for certain household items related to sleeping or household hygiene. You can pay for prepaid cards with internal controls for extraordinary and emergency assistance. And you can also pay for travel for students to participate in programming. All this information is going to live in the errata, and it is a complement to the program guidelines for the 23-24 grant. And continuing with this, when you're looking at programs, interventions, and supports for McKinney-Vento students who are impacted by truancy or other disciplinary action, it's always important to keep it at the top of the mind, the Texas Education Code. When you are supporting them, there's specific discipline and truancy guidance around supporting students that are experiencing homelessness. So please make sure that you have this up as you're supporting students with truancy. There's also as well the commissioner rules concerning truancy, and both of those documents really work together as a McKinney-Vento liaison in supporting your students that are having truancy issues or attendance issues, and just making sure that if you're supporting students who are experiencing homelessness with school of origin transportation, that you're in communication with truancy officers or attendance clerk or registrars, just depending on how your school district navigates doing that. And sharing this guidance when you do, as you're preparing for professional development over the summer with all of the different stakeholders within your school district in regards to truancy. The other important thing on here is that this is to help. There's programs, interventions, and supports that assist LEAs with transition assistance. And this is going to be for all of your highly mobile students who are homeless or in substitute care, specifically relating to students experiencing homelessness. This link in particular is going to take you to the Texas Administrative Code and the Commissioner's rules concerning transition assistance. There's also a welcome packet to help you as you're doing that. So as you're making your list of things to get rolling in the summer, as you're closing out the year and looking to start your next school year, that transition assistance needs to happen within the first 30 days that you're enrolling the students from our highly mobile groups. A couple of additional 23-24 TEHCY subgrant updates. You are going to have an additional 12 months to obligate funds. The possible extension is going to go to September 30th, 2026. Currently, the last day to amend funds is 7/2/24. More information on this will be forthcoming. We just wanted to give you a preview of the possibility of this so that you guys know about it. And also the most up-to-date thing is going to be your grants opportunities page for each grant. It's going to have the end date, and when that end date changes, our grants opportunities page will also be updated with those new dates.
One thing I wanted to add, just to jump in here really quickly. So this is actually an anticipated errata. So we're giving you guys a heads up on this. It's not posted yet, but it will be posted. And so just as a heads up, we're making very similar changes that are in the 24-25 grant to the 23-24 grant to encourage spending. And then also it is an anticipated extension that we will be receiving from the Department of Ed. We've heard about this informally in a PowerPoint presentation from Ed, but are waiting on formal guidance from the department before this is official. But again, wanted to give you a heads up. And as Desiree stated, currently the last day to amend funds for 23-24 is 7/2. So we will let you know if that changes or when that changes. But again, just wanted to serve all of this and providing you a heads up to support your planning.
So we're going to jump into our sub-grant application. The frequently asked questions has been posted. And so if you want to go in from the grants opportunities page, if you're following us along for this next grant, we're going to be talking about the 24-25 sub-grant application. April 23rd, which is next week, is our application due date for this TEHCY 3-year competitive grant. Just keep in mind that you have to apply in this competitive grant cycle to be eligible over the 3 years of the grant. So just an important reminder for that. September 24 is our 2024 is our anticipated no-go release for this grant. And these are the 3 years of this grant cycle that go together with the sub-grant application that is due on the 23rd. This is a brief overview of it. The Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth, TEHCY, is a discretionary competitive grant program that provides individual sub-grants awards to school districts and education service centers. They're awarded and selected every 3 years. It provides approximately $9.3 million in grant awards. The projected grant amounts are calculated by an estimated number of identified homeless students times 126 per student with a maximum cap of 400,000. The eligibility list is on the grants opportunity page for the projected grant amount based on LEA reported counts of homeless students in the 23-24 fall PEIMS data collection. I just want to point out this is a projected grant amount. It will depend on all the applications that come in for the final funding amounts. Here are the RFA components on the TEA grants opportunity page. All the TEHCY RFA documents are posted there. Applicants should carefully review and follow the instructions to complete and submit their grant application packet. There is the applicant grant webinar recording, errata 1, errata 2, and our frequently asked questions. You can scan the QR code to be taken directly to that. Our grant award is calculated in this first errata that we put in there for 24-25, and we're going to go through each one of them. That's going to help you in completing your application. It's calculated by an estimated number of homeless students times 126 per student with that cap that we spoke about earlier, the 400,000. This has been updated on page 6. Only one application per eligible entity is permitted. That's also on page 6. On page 17, you're going to find collaboration and coordination with other federal and state programs as part of the grant requirements. On page 17, you are able to pay for certain household items related to sleeping or household hygiene. Make sure that you're looking at those program guidelines because it is very distinct on which household items can be purchased, and then there's some that are unallowable. Payment for prepaid gift cards with internal controls. This is on page 18. And keep in mind, this is for extraordinary or emergency assistance to enable homeless children and youth to attend school. On our 24-25 second errata, there is a level of services chart that will be helpful in completing your application. It is referenced in the program guidelines on page 12. And it is updated with this levels of service chart. So if you have downloaded the previous program guidelines, I encourage you to go back to the grants opportunity page so that you can see these updates and you can have this levels of services chart as you're completing your application. We also included in the second errata this important component of serving at-risk non-homeless children and youth as a clarification. The applicant provides assurance that if services are provided on school grounds or at other facilities, the schools can use the funds to provide the same services to other children and youth who are determined by the LEA to be at risk of failing in or dropping out of school to the maximum extent practicable, be provided through existing programs and mechanisms that integrate homeless children and youth with non-homeless children and youth. If programming does not occur on school grounds or other allowable facilities, the applicant cannot use McKinney-Vento grant funds to pay for services to at-risk housed students. This is huge. This makes it a lot easier to use this funding and support students for those after-school activities as long as it is on school grounds or at other facilities as identified in the United States federal code for doing this. TEHCY program guidelines. This is really has all of this information in there. whenever you're doing your grant application, I remember myself as a McKinney-Vento liaison, I had this marked up and printed out and earmarked for all the different components of filling out my application to make sure that you are including everything that needs to be inside of your application. It's all going to be found in the program guidelines and supplemental erratum. So you have the program specific assurances, your statutory requirements, your TEA program requirements, activities and use of funds, performance measures, as well as scoring and reviewing. For more information, you can go to the TEA grants opportunity page, but one of my favorite parts inside of the competitive grant is that you have everything in a nice timeline so that you are able to look up, like on here in the middle, we have April 23rd is the due date for the grant. When they're going to be doing the competitive review period, which is May 20th through June 10th, the beginning date of the grant, your final date to do an amendment, and as well as the ending date for this grant at this time. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lay. She's going to take you through the FAQ.
All right, thank you, Desiree. So the FAQs were made available on the 16th, and you can access the FAQs going through the grants opportunity page. Desiree, if you can go to the next slide. There you go. And then if you click again, the QR code is going to show up. You can use your phone to scan this QR code. It will send you directly to the FAQs. And if you're getting the PDF later on, you can also click on the links and it'll show you where to go. So the FAQs are broken down into 5 sections. And thank you so much, everyone who sent in questions regarding the TEHCY competitive grant. We looked through the questions and we divided it out to the 5 sections, which is eligibility, application related. The third one is program related. Third is allowable use of funds. And then the last one was funding questions. We're not going to go through every single question. There are some that are very similar, but we're going to highlight some of the ones that we would like to share. Desiree, if you can go to the next slide. Okay, go ahead and click again. So section A is eligibility question. The one we want to look at right now is question number 1. Essentially, what this question is asking is that, is it accurate to state that if an LEA has 0 allocations, they are not eligible to apply? So the situation here was that there was a number of students who weren't reported through PEIMS, and so it looked like they didn't have any eligible students, and they're wondering if they're able to apply now or have to wait till the next round. So the TEHCY program encourages all LEAs to apply for this grant, and it doesn't limit the participation, even if an LEA has 0 allocations. But those who do have 0 allocations should participate through their ESC SSA. And then when continuation funds are available, awarded applicants will be able to receive updated allocation based on their per pupil amount, identified students reported. You can look further into program guides under eligibility section. It's on page 5 to 6 to learn more about this question. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Go ahead and click one more time. So this one is related to section B, and some of these questions are very similar. I wanted to look at this one right here, the TEHCY competitive grant. Is the other special population self-assessment for the entire SSA or each LEA in the SSA? So really the way that it's written, it's for each LEA and includes LEAs who are participating as part of the ESC SSA. The McKinney-Vento portion of the OSP self-assessment would need to be completed, and the due date for that is November 1st of 2024. And you would send it to homelesseducation@teatexas.gov. There are some additional guidance and support that's related to the OSP self-assessment, and it's provided during the grant year. Okay, click on the next one. All right, go ahead, click again. So section C is related to programs. There was a question that talked about really Transportation is one of those excessive costs for that district, and it's a little more than what the grant would be able to help cover. So the question would be, would it be worth applying since the cost is much more than what they are eligible for this grant? So TEA really encourages interested LEAs to apply for this grant. Not only during the participation, the grant will likely be able to help expand their knowledge and also the know-hows of McKinney-Vento program and related requirements. Transportation is one of the many requirements that can be supported with the TEHCY subgrant funds. Participants' knowledge and understanding for how other state and federal fund sources can be used to support McKinney-Vento transportation requirements. It could be helpful for the LEA's infrastructure and will likely be gained through participating in the grant. All right, go ahead and go to the next one. All right. Section D, allowable use of funds. So we did have a question regarding in the guidelines, the purchase of office furniture, copiers, and phones, and etc. is unallowable. That etc. is open to a lot of interpretations, right? So the question was, does this include a printer? The McKinney-Vento coordinator at one of the districts does not have a desktop printer and wanted to know if she is able to purchase one under the TEHCY grant. So this one would be like it depends, right? So in consideration of the purchase of the printer for a McKinney-Vento coordinator, TEHCY funds may be allowable, but it depends on the local considerations, right? You have to consult with your business office to ensure the cost is necessary, reasonable, and allocable per the uniform grant guidance. And so to better understand that, go ahead, Desiree, clicking to the next one. Okay, so, go back one. So number one, is this a reasonable and necessary use of funds? So you have to ask yourself these questions. Where is this person printing to now? And does this person have access to print to central office or department printer? Then the second one is allocability. And is this purchased? If this is purchased through the McKinney-Vento funds, it can only be used for McKinney-Vento purposes and not for any other role, nor can it be a shared printer. So usually this is within a large district is when you see that there is a McKinney-Vento coordinator that may be the only role that they have, but most likely the McKinney-Vento coordinator is playing multiple roles, doing multiple things. And so you really have to consider if you're buying this printer for the coordinator, she can only use this printer for McKinney-Vento tasks. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. All right, so the big question, right? The big question is talking about funding. So section E is about funding. Lots of great questions about the snapshot, if they are reconsidered. And so this question here is essentially asking that homelessness occurs all year long. Will there be a reconsideration or opportunity to allow districts with a history of data to show identification that surpasses the rate in the fall to submit budget requests for a higher amount? So the answer to this is not at this time. The allocation for the 24-25 school year is determined by fall 2023 snapshot numbers. These are unduplicated counts and in alignment with other TEA grant processes. And final TEHCY subgrant 24-25 allocation amounts will be determined after all grant applications are received and reviewed. Back to you, Desiree.
So once you complete that portion of it, we are going to do our scoring and reviewing. This is actually in a different guidebook. It is the general and fiscal guidelines. And the standard review criteria has 60 possible points. Just keep in mind that we have priorities for funding applications that receive a 70% of the 60 points available will have an additional 5 points awarded. For those LEAs and ESCs with an economically disadvantaged percentage of 75% or higher, that can be found on the eligibility list, your economically disadvantaged column. And will you drop in the chat, the general and fiscal guidelines link for everybody? So what happens after the grant submission? You submit your grant application. It makes its way eventually to the negotiators. You can submit a grant planning template to Homeless Education Office at tea.texas.gov or supplemental documents that go along with it. Your division contacts are broken up by region. And this is where you can find the most up-to-date on our grants page. It'll have over to the right-hand side where it says division contacts, and you can always click on that for who will be handling the negotiations and who you will be working with. ARP1 and ARP2, I'm going to pause there because we just went through a lot of information and just want to make sure after the FAQs and what happens after grant submission. Are there any questions that you guys have? Is there anything that's in the Q&A and for us to address?
Right now, there is a question that's asking, can you explain what it means to obligate funds?
We have experts on here with us, so I'm going to ask our grant folks, what does it mean when you obligate funds in a grant?
Hey, Desiree, we actually have a whole section and slide dedicated to that. So if they would
Perfect.
mind holding off, yeah, we can answer that, definitely.
Great.
Okay.
Go ahead,
want me
Ann, with our next question.
The next one is, does anyone that applied to the 24-25 grant automatically get it, or will there be some LEAs that don't receive it?
So this is a competitive grant process. There is always the chance that not everybody will receive the grant. We have had some grant years where everybody does. It just depends on the quality of the applications and if you meet all of the requirements when you submit your application. But it is, keep in mind, a competitive grant process. There's never an automatic. We have you all considered including our spring numbers? Our numbers doubled from fall McKinney-Vento numbers. So I'm going to redirect you guys to our frequently asked questions. We address that in the deck as well as in our FAQ. Do you expect that there will be more erratum for the 24-25 TEHCY grant before the deadline? You should send emails when an erratum gets released, because if we don't check the opportunity page weekly, we will miss it. At this time, we don't anticipate having another errata before the submission of the application. And we will definitely note that suggestion of sending an email to our listserv, and there will be an opportunity for you to sign up for the listserv at the end of this presentation to make sure that you get an announcement if we do that. What is the grant planning? Oh, don't worry about that part of it. That's on me. I put that in there by mistake. You're just doing it meant to say grant application, not a template. It's your full grant application that goes your part 1 and then all the attachments that go along as your application package. The recorded session is sent out to everybody who is registered as soon as we have it available. And then we are also going to post it on our webpage. But all of our registered participants are going to get it early next week ahead of the grant application deadline. So Megan asked, just to clarify, are we limited to only requesting the estimated allocated amount? So that is going to be your eligibility amount that you are able to receive. Just keep in mind that this is a projected amount, and we have to wait until we get all of the applications in to determine the final NOGA amount that you will receive. You won't be able to request that. You should use the eligibility amount that is on the grant opportunities page. Great questions today, guys. Really appreciate it. So we are going to jump into ARP1 and ARP2. Are you guys as grant folks ready to jump in on this part of it to go in? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Karen, Angelica, and Alex.
Hello, I'm Karen Gukais, and I'm working mainly with the ARP projects, the ARP Homeless. And so right now for all your ARP1 and ARP2 grants that you guys have, The ending date is 9/30/2024. And let's see, the final expenditure report, final and revised final expenditure report, that is now January 2nd, 2025. So that's the time where that's the when you have to submit all of your requests for reimbursement. Now, the next part right there talks about a possible liquidation extension with some of the ARP3 funds. There's going to be there's a new flexibility. There's a liquidation period extension. So liquidation period is only that after the ending date of the grant to the final revised final expenditure reporting date. That may be extended in some situations. And so it looks like that might be a possibility for the ARP homeless projects. We'll be getting a lot more information about that. If that does happen, then you'd have to go in and submit a form and get approved for the pieces that are eligible. That would only be for certain contracted pieces. It wouldn't be for your payroll, supplies and materials, any kind of professional, any kind of other operating costs. Is very specific. And so there'll be some information that'll be sent out regarding that. And that could possibly, we could possibly have an extended liquidation date of sometime in February 2026. So again, just that's something that's on your radar. If that happens, it'll probably be sent out via a huge to the administrator address letter, and where you'll see that information. Also, we're encouraging all of you guys to expend those ARP funds. This is this extra funding has right now, the ending date is 9/30/2024. Please, use those funds that you've got. In order to use up these ARP funds, we are looking, if you have any expenditures that you've classified to just your regular TEHCY projects, your regular homeless projects out of McKinney-Vento, and that are also allowable under ARP, you can always speak to your business office and see if they can reclassify some of those over to ARP, your ARP projects. And that way we'll be able to expend your allocation up as quickly as possible, as much as possible. Because again, we want you to be able to use these funds for all those allowable activities. So again, make sure you take a look. Is there anything else that may be allowable that you just haven't submitted an expenditure report for? So we're just really encouraging you to spend those ARP ESSER funds. The last day to amend is 7/2/2024. So if you need to do an amendment in order to do some classifying, you'd be able to do an amendment for that. Are there any other questions about that information?
There are no questions in the Q&A right now.
Just spend for allowable activities. Let's see. Here again, it's I think I already discussed this, any allowable homeless funds under ARP Homeless 1 and 2, any of your projects, from the beginning date of the ARP homeless. So if your beginning date was, I can't remember the beginning date, you had pre-award costs. So anything from the pre-award cost to the ending date of the grant, 9/30/2024, if they occurred in your regular TEHCY and they're allowable under ARP, you can always code those to ARP. There's no supplement, not supplant when it comes to the ARP homeless. And so it's not like you have to worry about, supplanting a state project. Yeah, another thing, for ARP Homeless 2, that grant that is in eGrants, that one, there was a reallocation of sorts. and we provided you with some additional funding. And what you had to do is you had to go in, you had to submit an amendment in order to get those funds. So you may not realize that you do have to amend to get those additional funds. So we still have quite a few that are outstanding. And so we're just encouraging you to go to the TEA grant opportunities page and go to your ARP Homeless 2 federal grant. Take a look at the eligibility list, eligible grantee list. You can pop that up, take a look at your district and see how much you have. If that's more than what's on your current NOGA, that means you need to come in for an amendment to add your additional funds. The amendment date is 7/2/2024. So we encourage you to come in as quickly as possible. We're hitting our busy time right now with all the ESSAs, special ed, Perkins grants going to be coming in soon. And so we encourage you guys to come in for your amendments for this additional money as quickly as possible.
So Karen, we do have a question from Amanda. Do LEAs have to liquidate materials by the end of the grant period?
So if let's say that you purchase something, you place an order for some kind of equipment or materials, and it was before 9/30/2024, you have until your revised final expenditure reporting due date to receive those materials, if that's the question.
We have another question. I'm going to read this straight from what it is. It says, I'm a little confused. Would an example be, based on our budget, TEHCY funds have been expended. However, we can code them to ARP and continue to use TEHCY funds until the extended use date for extra duty pay, for example.
For the extended due date?
This is for TEHCY funds.
Oh, TEHCY.
Yeah, they're asking about like a TEHCY and ARP interaction. So if there's an extension to the TEHCY funds, can they code their expenses from this year to ARP and continue to use TEHCY funds until the extended use date? Their example is like for extra duty pay, could also be like personnel. The answer to that portion is yes, you would be able to reclass those funds. We've talked about this before, Karen, like if they've got additional, and Angelica, like if they've got additional time on one of the grants, they're able to go back and reclass expenditures.
If they are reclassifying expenditures to your TEHCY ARP, then you are now allowed to expend those based on your allowable grant period and liquidation rules of TEHCY ARP. Now, the money that you've already expended on your regular TEHCY grant, you have two options. You can either submit a refund for those expended costs, or you can keep the cost expended and offset it with your future regular TEHCY cost that you're planning on drawing down on.
All right, and this next part of it, there is a difference between an extension of a grant and liquidation of a grant. So I'm going to hand it over to Angelica for the CFR 76707.
Thank you, Desiree. Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica Soriano. I've been helping the TEHCY team primarily on the regular TEHCY for the past couple of years, and recently have just been helping Karen with TEHCY ARP. So today we'll be discussing obligation and liquidation a little bit more in detail. It sounds like it's a very hot topic right now based on the questions we've had so far in the chat. So just a general overview, there are a number of basic factors that determines if a grant expenditures are allowable. So one of these factors is when the obligation for a good or service is made as it relates to your allowable grant period. So on this screen is a list of goods and services and their related obligation requirement, pulled directly from Edgar section 76707. So if you're on the financial side, we've seen this, we're familiar, but we'll go over it again. A liquidation, on the other hand, is the drawing down and expenditure of funds by a grantee for obligations incurred during the grant's legal obligation period. So this is typically your 90-day closeout period that happens between the end of the grant period and your final and revised final expenditure report. So now with this extension, the biggest question we've been getting is which activities can we carry out during the liquidation period? And can we? And so in short, it depends, but yes, for contracted services and activities. So we'll go through each of these examples and determine how the obligation is made and if each activity will be allowed to continue to be carried out through the liquidation period. And so we will see this B and C has a big red box around it. And the reason why that is because it has been highlighted. This is the highest budgeted cost item across the board. So we just wanted to highlight that for you. So let's just go down the list. So if the obligation is for an acquisition of real or personal property, the obligation is made on the date when the LEA makes a binding written commitment to acquire the property or a contract is executed. So will this be allowable under the extension? The answer was yes, if the legal obligation is made before the end date. Personal services made by an LEA employee, whether that be payroll, stipend, EDP, the obligation is made when the services are performed. So will this be allowable under the extension? It will not. Personal services by a contractor who is not employed by the LEA, the obligation is made on the date when the LEA makes a binding written commitment to obtain the services. So when a contract is executed, or your local policy might define obligation as a PO. So will this be allowable under the extension? Yes, if the legal obligation is made before the end date. If the obligation is for a performance of work other than personal services, the obligation is made when the date when the LEA makes a binding written commitment to obtain the work. So once again, if the contract is executed or your local policy might define an obligation as a PO. And this will also be allowable under the extension if the legal obligation is made before 9/30. So the last three, public utility services, this obligation is made when the LEA receives the services. So this will not be allowable under the liquidation extension. Travel, the obligation is made when the travel is taken. So this will not be allowable under the liquidation extension. And the rental or lease of personal property, the obligation is made when the LEA uses the property. So this will not be allowed under the liquidation extension. And last one, this is not very common. A pre-agreement cost properly approved by the Secretary USDE. This obligation is made when the first day of the subgrant performance period, your NOGA period. Like I said, this is not applicable for most LEAs. It would be allowed under the liquidation extension, but it is highly unlikely. We'll be releasing more and more guidance as it comes closer to the actual extension date and as we get more information from the USDE. In the meantime, feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns regarding your grant, and I'll hand it back over to Desiree.
Thank you, Angelica. We really appreciate that. And again, just as a reminder, I have it up here at the top of the slide, but the liquidation application is for state education agencies, and the opening date for the liquidation extension application is September 30th of 2024. So this is down the line in our school year, but we just wanted to share the information that we've received thus far from the Department of Education. And as we receive additional guidance, as Angelica pointed out, we will be in communication with you guys and let you guys know. So we have some critical ARP1 and ARP2 grant deadlines. You can always find all of your critical events for any grant that you are applying to or that you already have on the grants opportunities page. The grants opportunities page is kept up to date with these end of year reminders and reporting periods. So it's always a good place to go and check that out. As Karen so nicely pointed out, there's lots of funding available inside of some of the ARP that needs to be, go ahead and grab it and do your amendment. The amendment date is on there of 7/2/2024, but it's always good to get it sooner rather than later, so that you can start using it to help all of your students experiencing homelessness. And as she said, we would greatly appreciate it. If you guys don't know this, in the summer is a very busy time for grants. So if you're getting it to us, and I know we're in a hot, busy time for school districts and ESCs at the end of the school year, but if this is something that you're able to prioritize and get to us early, we would deeply appreciate it. And you'll deeply appreciate it because the turnaround time will be a lot faster the sooner that you get it in. Karen and Allison and Angelica, would you agree with that with a thumbs up? That yeah. We're like, yes. Also want to point out, we haven't shared this before, but just want you guys to have this on your radar. The end of year report for ARP1 and ARP2 are both due on December 1st of 2024. We will have a webinar, as we always do, for end of year reports as it gets closer to it. So just some high level information to provide for you guys so that you are aware of what's coming up as you're planning out your rest of your fiscal year. This is my favorite, and Karen, you do like an amazing job of explaining this disposition of equipment form, because we get questions all the time of how it's the end of the grant, we have some stuff from the grant, how do we adequately take care of that? So I'm gonna let Karen take it away and explain how you can keep your stuff and where you can find the form.
And I'm no expert on this, but what I've learned is there is a form that is available. If you go to the grant opportunity, well, if you go to the grant opportunities page over on the left under TEA, you'll find grants administration. So off of the grants administration page, or actually, I think it's under the TEA grant opportunities page on the left, there's forms, justification forms. There's that link. And let me take a look just to make sure I'm reading it correctly. Let me pull it up so I can see the exact wording.
And great news, I've already dropped that in the chat. So if you're here with us in the live webinar, you don't have to go look on the grants opportunities page. You can just click the link in the chat. It's going to take you to that fillable disposition of equipment form. So if you want to download it and have it on hand as your grant ends.
Good. So you go there and pretty much it'll ask you, I mean, most of the questions are right on there. What normally happens at the end of your grant period, it pretty much asks you a couple of questions. Is this equipment still usable? And if it is still usable, if you still have this program, like with ARP 1 and 2, it really mimicked McKinney-Vento. And as long as you keep having McKinney-Vento, it can be, you can pretty much keep working or keep using that equipment for the same types of things. So keep using it for your TEHCY, for your homeless projects. Let's say that the piece of equipment is no longer usable. Then there's a section on there where it tells you how you can dispose of it. If you can, how to get rid of it, to sell it. There's also, I think, another area where they talk about if you still have this piece of equipment, you no longer need it anymore. What do you do? And I believe it'll state something like, take a look at some of your other projects or what's going on in your school, in your district, and try to find a similar, project or activity that you can use that for. And I believe those are all pretty much listed on that form. So that's just pretty much a basic, a basic guideline on when it comes to the disposition of equipment. But for the most part, if it's still good, you still got it, you can keep it and keep it going with your TEHCY projects, with your homeless projects.
And just keep in mind, it is a federal requirement. The federal law is on there on this disposition equipment form, and that it is supplies and equipment under the fair market value that's less than $5,000. So just make sure that you're doing your due diligence when you're filling out this form, and that everything that it's asking. And then this is something that you would keep on hand as documentation.
And this is for any kind of equipment, not just equipment under 5,000. If it's less than 5,000, it can be retained, sold, or otherwise disposed of. If it's more than 5,000, that's really when TEA needs that information to determine, okay, what are we going to do with this equipment?
Okay, so so is it like if the item is under $5,000, what does that mean with the $5,000?
I believe, because here it says if it's a fair market value of less than 5,000. So if it's something that's pretty inexpensive, but you had to capitalize it, you know, some kind of equipment, maybe it cost like $1,000 or whatever, but because of your capitalization, you know, you had to list it down there. Then when it comes to for the fair market price, if it's no longer worth more than 5,000, I believe that it can be either retained, sold, or otherwise disposed of without having any kind of permission from TEA to tell you. If it's more than $5,000, like a vehicle or some kind of bigger piece of equipment, and it's still worth more than $5,000, then, you know, that's when, you know, that's when you have to get something from the from TEA that says, okay, this is what you can do with it. But definitely read the form. The form will provide you with pretty much all the answers to your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. While we have the grant folks here with us, we're going to do a pause to process and let Ann check the chat or the Q&A if there's anything that's come up for them.
I think this has already been answered during the presentation, but there was a question that do we complete that disposition form if the value is over 5,000?
I think so. I believe so. You'd have to complete it. If it's something that you're ready to, you know, to get rid of, if it's more than $5,000, you do have to submit that form. And I think you have to have, I think at that point you get, you have to have TEA approval. Or you have to request TEA approval to do something with that particular piece of equipment, whether you can keep it, if you can sell it, where to put the money once you get it sold. Maybe it has to be refunded, but it should state it on the form.
There's a question that came in about the new errata. Under the new errata says we can purchase office furniture, example desk. We just moved to a new building and plan to buy new desk for new office space. Is this allowable?
Been here, and we're going to need to get back to you on the specifics. And we made some micro detail changes related to some of this, some things being allowed, others not. And so I'd like, please email us at Homeless Education, and then we'll be able to provide you that information.
That's all the questions that are in the Q&A.
Great. Thank you guys. And as anything comes up for you, please, as Kelly reiterated, and we'll have it at the end of the slideshow, reach out to the Homeless Education inbox so that we can answer your nuanced questions. Thank you guys. So we're going to get into the general reminders, but first we're going to thank our grant folks. They're very busy and we appreciate them being on here. So if you guys can throw some thanks into the chat, of course, that's always appreciated. And let them get on with their Thursday afternoon. I wanted to say Monday. It feels like Monday to me, but it's not. It's Thursday. All right. Thanks, guys. We got a few thank yous for you. And of course, we always deeply appreciate having you guys on here to help us through all that. So jumping into some general reminders. Just wanted to let you guys know for our TEHCY office hours is going to be coming up on Friday, May 10th. There's the QR code if you would like to register for it. And just want to let you know that office hours are a time in the month that the TEHCY leadership team set aside for listening, sharing, and helping McKinney-Vento liaisons with their questions, queries, or concerns. This can be an ESC McKinney-Vento liaison, an LEA McKinney-Vento liaison. We encourage you to join us. It is an interactive opportunity to connect with other McKinney-Vento stakeholders across the state. Also want to remind you guys and have you save the date. We have our last HMAR quarterly webinar that's happening on May 2nd. And you can register for that. We will also put that into the chat so that you guys can register for the upcoming HMAR webinar. And I have it where it goes to everyone now, so everyone should be able to get to it. So there's that registration link for that. Again, and in our HMAR webinar, we go through all of our highly mobile populations, military connected, foster care, and McKinney-Vento. So if you wear multiple hats, it's a great place for you to get one-stop shopping 4 times a year about everything that's going on with that. If you want more nuanced stuff, we have different, just like we do in this combined coffee chat, there's always opportunities for you to participate and join us separately within our programs. To sign up for those announcements and those listservs, of which you'll be seeing a lot more of McKinney-Vento, which we're very excited about. This is our special student populations. You can scan that QR code so that you are able to get announcements. I always want to let everybody know that you do need to be able to receive Gov Delivery. That is the Texas Education Agency's announcement platform. So there has been a few that we've gotten through technical assistance asking about that. So if you want to check it, if you're able to receive Gov Delivery to your inbox, and just wanted to make sure that the HMAR webinar link is in there. And then the TEHCY office hours is right there for you guys as well. So you can register for both of those opportunities, as well as the announcement opportunity. We want to thank you guys for attending our session. It's always a pleasure to have you. And this is Dr. Lay's second opportunity with us. She did a webinar with us last week, and now she's done her first official coffee chat. So our contact information is there. I want to direct you to the homeless education inbox that's below. You can always reach out with any of your questions. You also have excellent ESC McKinney-Vento liaisons that can help you regionally with all your technical assistance questions. So you can always find all that information on our TEHCY webpage, which has your region and your ESC McKinney-Vento liaison. If you haven't already connected with them, it's a great opportunity to connect with them. We set aside here a dedicated Q&A. So Anne, is there any questions that have come up since we've been going through the general reminders?
Just one question. Is there a time frame for completing the disposition request form?
See if we can get you guys some contact information for that. So we'll look for that part of it. We deeply appreciate everybody's feedback. And so just want to give you an opportunity to fill out the survey. Anything that you put in that feedback survey helps drive our program and our content and how we approach things going in the future. So we appreciate, hey, we would love to see a session on this, or this part was excellent, or this part is confusing. The better feedback that you guys give us, the better content that we can make for you. And then just want to make sure that I'm looking at that form. Give me 1 second. Give you guys an opportunity to fill out the feedback survey.